We know that there have been many, many proposals about how to bridge the gaps. Most recently, last night, President Saleh, in a large gathering, put forward some more plans, proposals of how to restructure the government. And I think, we hope, that is being seriously looked at. When we talk about Yemen, as when we talk about what's happening in other parts of the region, we do stress the importance of dialogue. And we do stress the importance of dialogue setting the stage and paving the way for free and open and transparent elections. There's a parliamentary election that's slated for later this year. Yemen has actually done some fairly good elections in the past. We and others will be watching what happens in this one quite closely. But we do have some concerns about how it's structured and how it's organized. And we note, for instance, that our friends at NDI have estimated that at least 1 million voters could be disfranchised if the rolls are not completed accurately. We've encouraged the government to resolve this issue as it negotiates with the opposition parties. And as I said, we are watching closely to see how this process unrolls. Let me talk very briefly about another aspect of U.S. relations with Yemen. Obviously, the political side of the House is critical. But I think to those of us who look at Yemen, one of the greatest challenges it faces is on the economic side. And at the end of the day, we set aside the political messiness of Yemen, we set aside the terrorism issues. It may be where the rubber meets the road, in terms of Yemen's future. Our government has implemented what we like to think is a multi-pronged strategy towards Yemen. What this does, it's a whole of government, which of course is a term of art in this town inside the Beltway. But what we want to do is try and find various tools in our kit bag to help Yemen address the many challenges and threats that it sees. We are marshaling U.S. resources to help improve Yemen's macroeconomic stability, to increase the delivery of services so the government can better serve its people, and to improve local governance. Our primary security concerns, I don't have to tell any of you in this room, stem from the presence of Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula in Yemen. You know, this is a group that has shown the ability to reach the homeland, so that makes us important to us. But it also is important to the Yemeni people, because it's not only the United States and the international community that's been targeted by A2AT. It's Yemen, it's its people, it's its government. So our strategic approach to both problems of terrorism and the serious political and economic challenges that the government and the people of Yemen face must be sustained, it must be comprehensive, and we must be able to demonstrate that we are in this for the long haul. I want to stress that as we do this, we don't see our role as Big Brother or Uncle Sam or whatever. As we put together a Yemen policy, we talk constantly with a wide range of Yemenis. In the government, outside the government, civil society. We're on the ground in Sana'a. We continue to be on the ground in Sana'a, although you may have noted that the embassy has gone on what we call authorized departure, so some family members will likely be departing. But there has been a significant amount of outreach to the leaders and the people of Yemen over the last, certainly the last 18, 20 months I've been on the job. Most recently, Secretary Clinton, as you may know, was in Sana'a. Let me talk very briefly about this visit. This was the first visit by a Secretary of State to Yemen in 20-some years, and it was a great visit. She left Sana'a enthused and invigorated by some of the conversations she had. She had excellent meetings with the political leadership, with the president, with the opposition, but I think the high point of her trip was her encounter with civil society. She spent about an hour and a half with a broad range of civil society leaders in Sana'a, and she told Jeff Feltman, our assistant secretary, that it was the best group of civil society leaders that she had met on any of her trips anywhere. They were engaged, they had lots and lots of ideas, they weren't afraid of speaking up, and she took away from that, if given some of the enormous challenges of Yemen, that if you have a civil society, even a core civil society of that, you couldn't ever truly give up on Yemen. One of the reasons why the Middle East Partnership is actually focused on, the Middle East Partnership Initiative, MEPI as we call it in this town, has focused on Yemen's civil society is because we do see that as one of the agents of change on the ground. The Yemen program may well be MEPI's showcase. We have a number of participants in seminars and training and in projects that range from political development, grassroots development, political parties, women's issues, the issue of child rights, and entrepreneurism. As you also know, over the last couple of years of this administration, the United States has significantly increased our humanitarian development and security assistance to Yemen. We currently provide, FY 2010, currently provide $300 million. And these funds are supporting a new USAID approach, which basically looks at areas that are the most needy and areas that have to show some real change in terms of meeting the people's needs for jobs, for services, for schooling, even such basics as water. The stabilization program was launched in 2010, March, and it's a pilot program. It's a test program. It's unusual compared to a lot of traditional aid programs, and we'll see how far it goes. We're currently, the Secretary was on the Hill today and yesterday, currently caucusing with the Hill about our 2012 budget. Of course, 2011 is still subject to continuing resolution, so that ebbs and flows. I want to leave you with a sense that the American policy towards Yemen is not a counterterrorism policy, it's not a political policy, it's not an aid policy, it's a combination of all of those. It's a whole of government approach. And it is done in such a way that we hope we can reach out and touch the broadest number of Yemenis and affect change on the ground in support of the priorities and the issues that the Yemenis themselves have deemed important. One more thought on that. We tend to focus in this town about what the United States does and what we should be doing and what we're not doing. The fact of the matter is that when it comes to Yemen, we can't and we shouldn't do it alone. The Yemenis obviously have to be in the forefront of any effort to remake their country. The international community, though, is critical in this process. The United States, yes, but we join with our friends in the Gulf, and we join with our friends in Europe to help provide a little bit of the economic ballast, a little bit of the support that Yemen needs. The Gulf states are critical to this effort. The Saudis, obviously, the Omanis, the Emiratis, even the Qataris to a lesser extent, have all made serious commitments and engagements in Yemen. Those are continuing. The British, our partnership with the British is frankly one of the best I've seen when it comes to Yemen. We work together. None of us have any of the answers, but we understand that what happens in Yemen affects us all. And so it's not the preserve of the Americans or the Gulfies or whomever. It is an international effort. Our ultimate goal, I get back to where I started, a stable, a prosperous, a unified Yemen. That's a tall order, particularly given everything that we know about Yemen and all the enormous challenges that it faces. But I had a conversation yesterday with a gentleman who has enormous experience in Yemen. And although I went into the meeting somewhat pessimistic, knowing everything that we know, I still left it with a lot more sense that we're moving in the right direction. I mean, he says that yes, Yemen is difficult. Yes, Yemen has problems. And yes, it is wavering either way. But there is an enormous capacity in Yemen to pick up the pieces and start over again. It may not be the way we want it. It may not be the way the neighbors want it. But to the extent that we can help it as it moves forward, I think that we as Americans can be proud of what we do. It's a work in progress.